Hi, everybody. Welcome back. So great to have you all join us again here at Hiawatha Valley Mental Health Center. We're a collaborative service that meets people's needs in several communities in the area. And if you just want any kind of mental health services, go ahead and give us a call at 1-800-657-6777 or online at hvmhc.org. If you or a family member is experiencing a mental health crisis, please contact our mobile crisis response service at 1-844-274-7472. I am Sabrina Locke, and I am a therapist, and I work in the outpatient department at the Red Wing office. And so I've been working with patients of all ages, and I think one of my biggest experience is in life is really being a mom. So I come from a blended family. I have 10 kids at home sometimes, depending on the day, and I think that really brings a lot of experience. And so I really do try all of the things that I'm talking about today. And I'll be honest, there are times it works and there are times it doesn't, because this isn't a perfect system. Kids can create a lot of challenges and barriers. And we're going through a very unique and just different time right now that creates some challenges. Last week, I brought some information about communication to you. And one of the things that we talked about is that COVID-19 should not steal your joy. And I think one of the things that we all know is that connection is super important part of joy and finding ourselves and being a part of this earth is having connections that are healthy and safe and bring joy to us. And so I also want to talk this week about connection being a super important part and not letting COVID-19 rob us of our ability to connect with each other and our family and friends. Brené Brown said that connection is the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationship. Relationships are so important as a mutually important thing for you to be able to give the ability to connect and for people to feel connected to you. Connection is so important because we're hardwired as human beings to connect with others. It's what gives purpose and meaning to our lives, and without it, there's suffering. Studies show that social connection can lower anxiety and depression and help us regulate our emotions. It leads to higher self-esteem and empathy, and it actually improves our immune systems. So by neglecting our connections, we put our health at risk. Studies show that connected people live longer and happier lives. And children who are connected to caregivers in their lives have better relationships as adults, and this leads them to have healthier, happier, and more successful lives as adults. Studies also show that loneliness is directly linked to addiction, and we're seeing that right now. The rates of addiction and relapses and people reaching out for supports due to relapsing or new addictions is skyrocketed due to the coronavirus. And there's studies that are starting now that are trying to find the link between the inability to connect and the isolation and the feelings of loneliness as it relates to addiction. When we look at how the brain responds to rejection or, some of that loneliness, the same receptors that light up when someone is rejected light up when someone experiences physical pain. And so if you think about a child who a parent rejects, they would experience it like pain. So if the parent says, no, go away, not right now, that child actually experiences that like pain. As children, if this happens repeatedly, you might start to see them avoid relationships or eventually engage in harmful relationships to avoid some of that pain later on. And then other coping mechanisms may start. So if people are feeling lonely or they feel rejected or they feel isolated, again, they might start doing things to cope, like drugs, alcohol, things like that. There are types of connections that we all need in our lives. So research indicates that we need 3 types of connections in our lives. Starting very early on, we need a primary connection to, our birth family or a primary connected family. So our core family. And this is where we really develop our skills for communication. We find ways to, respond to others. We learn how to have relationships in that primary family. We learn to trust other people and we learn how to cope with the world around us. So that's where we get most of our foundation in our lives. As we get older, our social group connection becomes really important because it's who are we outside of our primary family? We practice new skills. We try to separate ourselves a little bit as we become adolescents, and the older we get, we kind of find out who we are in the world through that social group connection. And then throughout our lives, we have intimate connection. And this doesn't have to be romantic, but it can be romantic, but it can also be friends. And really it's that more deep connection where people, you would say something like, they know everything about me, or people that you would share your most intimate secrets with. What do we all need to feel connected? I think everyone is really different in this regard. And I think regardless of your personality, we all need healthy relationships in our lives. We have introverts and we have extroverts and we have people kind of in between. But regardless of that, everyone really does need different types of healthy relationships. So I think it's really how you invest in relationships and how you perceive relationships, but connection is still just as important. Connectedness really requires reciprocal caring, effort, and intentionality. Any relationship, it can't be a one-way street. True connectedness requires you to really put some effort in as well and feel like that's reciprocated to have connection. So when we're thinking about kids and families, or our friends or any other type of relationship, it ebbs and flows, but I think there's this intentionality behind caring about that other person, giving them, some of your heart, talking to them, sharing things with them. And if we want to connect, we must put the effort in as well. To do this, it's important to really get to know yourself, really understand your boundaries, your likes, your dislikes, and to be able to have healthy connections, it's really important to know your trigger points. There might be things that you're really sensitive about, or you're really struggle with in relationships. And I think really getting to know yourself well and what you need from a relationship of any kind, and what you're able to give so that you can keep yourself healthy and well is really important. Be willing to take the time to get to know the other person. And so this requires practicing really good communication skills. I think without good communication, connection can be really difficult. And I think when you think about kids in the context of connection, teaching them how to connect is super important. So here's 10 ways to build strong friendships and just some different things you can really share with your kids. There's just, if you want to make a good friend and keep a good friend, how do they do that? And so I think there's just ways you can teach your kids in this process, like how to be a good friend or how to keep a good friend. I think one of the things that I really want to get across today is that proximity does not equal connection. Let's take COVID as an example, and I just want to put this out there, full honesty, that being quarantined with your children, your family members, did not make connection easier, that at times it made it more difficult, and that you may have felt stress being around your family members more, and maybe withdrew more from having those healthy connections with your family members. I want to go back to something that I said about intentionality is required for connection. And I think living with someone does not necessarily mean that you have a connection. And so I think there's a lot more that goes into it. This started to feel like my family at times over the last several months. We were sitting around the table and I looked around and I think everyone had a phone sitting by their plate, and it just struck me that we're all slipping into these patterns. We're so used to just grabbing that phone to cover up boredom, to just distract ourselves from stress, things like that. And this starts to look like our family. One person's watching a show. We may all be in the same room, but no one is connecting. And so I would guess that maybe this is starting to feel like your families as well. When kids don't feel connected to their families, you might see more behaviors in the home or the community. You might be super like, what's going on? My child, who's usually really well behaved, is acting out, or they're running around with a group of kids they shouldn't be, and not listening in class. There's just a lot of behaviors that you might see when kids are feeling disconnected. Let's just say kids have a way of communicating with us even if they don't use words. Important right now, especially with COVID and just some barriers, to watch out for signs of depression and anxiety in children of all ages, and in particular teens, because they might be, fine on the outside. They may come through the room, they might not be talking as much, but just really pay attention for any signs of depression or other mental health symptoms in your children. And I would say, as a parent, consequences become more difficult and children can be more resentful if they're not feeling connected to you. So if your child misbehaves and they're not feeling connected or close with you, and you reprimand them or put down a consequence, their response or their feelings their takeaway might be resentment. And so they might be angry that you're doing that, versus seeing it as, my parent is putting into place protective measures or consequences because they care about me. It's really hard to create that connection when you're talking to your kid and they don't feel connected to you. And I think one of the things when we're not connected to our kids, or they're not feeling connected to us, is you really do miss out on knowing the coolest part about your kids. So if they don't feel connected to you, they're not telling you. And I think that's just a huge thing to pay attention to, is you want your kids to talk to you about what's going on in their lives. You want your kids to tell you, the good, the bad, the ugly, basically. And so I think it's really important that we really do form really good connections with our kids, so that is possible. When kids do feel connected, there's so much more buy-in to participate. If you think about when you go to work and you feel like you're a part of the job, and you feel like you're a part of things, you're an important part of that puzzle, you're definitely more motivated and you try harder and ultimately achieve more. Kids are the same way. The parent-child relationship is one that nurtures the physical, emotional, and social development of the child. This relationship lays the foundation for that child's personality, life choices, and overall behavior for the rest of their lives. And so when we think about how critical that is for the rest of their lives, it's important that we start at home and really develop those connections. Bessel van der Kolk said that the parent-child connection is the most powerful mental health intervention known to mankind. As an outpatient therapist working with children, I can do a lot of interventions that are really helpful with your children. I can teach them about feelings, and I can teach them, skills and resources. But the really truly best treatment for any child is a parent that's connected and can teach that child at home and can model for that child a successful way to live, and that child feels safe and has responsive caregivers. So connection is the key to being a successful human. Being connected to others helps us learn about ourselves, helps us have better insight into our goals, and helps us achieve more. Feeling like we hold a valuable place in society is critical to our success. And kids want to know that they hold a valuable place in your family. Are they important? Do they feel like what they bring to your family matters? And I think that's an important part of connection, especially right now when we're all home more and everyone has different roles. Things might have shifted in your family. And so I think when we're looking at family systems and when we're looking at how things function, what's the role that your child plays in your family? Do they feel like they're contributing? Do they feel like they're a part of things? Kids want to be a part of that. Kids want to help with responsibilities in your home. And so I was able to find this quick chart that just talks about 7 surprising reasons kids need responsibilities. And it helps them feel like they're part of the family. It gives them a sense of accomplishment, lifelong skills, responsibilities, and helps them see themselves as trustworthy, reduces the feelings of entitlement, and makes everyone's life easier. As your kids get older and start helping with chores and doing their part, it really does make a difference and helps things run easier. But it has this residual effect of the kids feeling like they're part of making the family run smoothly, and gives them a feeling of accomplishment and purpose in your family. Family connection as a whole is really important as well. And to do this and make sure that everyone feels connected as a whole, it can be really tough because you might have family members, again, that have different needs. And so a few ways to do this, even though you might have little kids, adults, different age groups, is just noticing and acknowledging things you like about your different family members regularly. There might be, it might be small things, just acknowledging like, hey, I really like that you were able to help me with this. When you say like, hey, you remembered to do this for me and I really appreciate that. It goes a long way towards turning the tide to a really positive culture in your family. Taking time every day to check in with your family members. How are they doing? How are things going? I think that's an important part of connection that you can do quite easily. Like, at different times, setting up one specific time of day that you check in with everybody, either all together or individually. If you do that before bed, it just depends on your family makeup. It's important to find routines or times everyone can participate in daily tasks. Where everyone contributes. And so if this is maybe after dinner, everybody brings their plates to the counter and helps to clean up after supper. Or in the morning before you go to school, everyone helps gather everything up and get ready to go out the door, make their beds, or whatever that is. It's important that everyone sees everyone contributing. And then having traditions is also one way that helps everybody feel like they're participating. When you have a tradition as a family, it might be at Christmas time or once a month you have a pizza game night, or something that you anticipate coming up that everyone is a part of. As a family, you have traditions to carve pumpkins on the Friday before Halloween, or whatever that looks like for your family. I think it's just a really great way for kids and parents alike to say, this is about us having something collaboratively, all of us together sharing the same thing. And then developing a culture of open and honest dialogue about everything. And by everything, I don't mean share with your kids stuff that they shouldn't hear, or talk to them about your finances or your relationship. What I'm suggesting is that when your kids come to you and they share, Mom, I did something bad, or Mom, somebody told me something, really watch your response. I think if you over and over and over again respond with solution-focused dialogue, like, how can we work through this problem? Or I'm here to help you and listen. Do you want solutions to this? I think if you really respond to your children in a way that invites that sort of conversation and dialogue without consequences for them telling you things, I think it increases the safety of kids, because it decreases the chance that they're going to hide stuff from you. And I'm not suggesting that you don't have consequences or boundaries for your children, but that you create that opportunity for them to always come to you with their problems in life. Specific children need different kinds of connection. Each child is different. And so use these tips and ideas as you'd like to, because I think your child might be 2, your child might be 23. So I think it's important just to really know your own child. But in some manner, tell your child every day that they matter. This could be saying, I love you. This could be saying, I'm grateful for you. This could be doing something nice for your child, or just if your child is, an affectionate child, you can give them a hug every day. But however they receive the feeling that they matter, tell them that they matter. One way that I've done this in my own family is I've used the love languages, and there's love languages for children too. And I have one child that's a physical touch love person, and so I make sure to hug that child every day. Another child's a verbal child, so they like to hear a lot of praise. And then I have a child that's all about quality time, and so I try to play a 10-minute game or something every single day just to tell my child that I matter and my time matters, and so I'm going to share it with them. It's about the simple things with your child, and do them regularly. If it's reading stories, tucking them in, eating dinner together, playing a game, or going for a walk, it doesn't matter. Just make sure you take out that little bit of time and do it regularly. It's not a trip to Disney World. It's not the fancy stuff in life that kids need to feel connected. It's not the gifts. It really isn't. Kids can have a lot of things in life and they don't feel connected. And that's, I think, when you explore that with kids as adults, I think you go back to, I felt loved. And that's what kids say when they feel connected to their parents. And it really matters a lot. Again, I just want to repeat that kids who feel loved by their parents report significantly higher levels of contentment. They do better in school and into adulthood. It's not easy, but it's worth it. I think friend connection is important. This one can be really hard right now. So it's hard. Again, we talked about last week, where's the line? How can we talk to our kids about staying connected right now? And I think that's really having open dialogue about what are the ground rules of social distancing, and creating opportunities for your kids to play together outside if possible, or in settings where they can social distance. Arranging times for your child to have Skype calls with relatives or friends who are far away, and reminding your kids this isn't forever. And then as parents, don't forget that you need friends too, and date nights if you are able to get away and take breaks. It's important that everyone stays connected with our outside connections, and by friend I really mean, you know, if you need a night with your mom, or, you know, a relative, or you just need to get all the girls together on Skype and talk for 2 hours, make sure that you're carving out time to connect, even through the barriers that we have right now. The hard parts. I talked a lot about like how to connect, but let's be honest, as a parent, this is you sometimes, this is me a lot of the time. I'm exhausted. You know, working full time or being home full time with kids, it makes this hard sometimes. Connection is really hard work and takes a lot of intentionality. And one of the things that I think of when I think of kids is, has there ever been a day that you know your child needs your attention? They have been trying to get it all day, but they've been maybe a pill about it. Are they, you know, reacting negatively? Are they biting, hitting, swearing? Are they fighting with their siblings, or just, you know, just acting out? And let's be honest, as a parent, at the end of the day, how hard is it to show affection or even respond kindly when you're really frustrated with your child? And I think sometimes maybe when your child needs it the most, it can be the most difficult for you, because as a human being, you're frustrated. And that's kind of the moment where you might say, like, I'm done, please just go away from me. And they're saying, like, pay attention to me. And so I think just really acknowledging how difficult that can be. Just remember that life is real and we're human beings too. And so it makes sense that at times those reciprocal relationships are harder when you have a child, because children aren't as reciprocal. So it's a lot of the adult needing to really try to figure out what your child needs. Pay attention to signs that you're burnt out. Remember that you can't pour into your child from an empty cup. What do we do when we just can't? Remember to take breaks. You can't be a mom 24/7. You can't be a dad 24/7 or a caregiver 24/7. You've got to give yourself time to reset and recuperate. Find alternatives. So if your child really needs something and you just can't right that minute, pass it off onto another caregiver. Call mom, call grandma, ask for a babysitter, or even just, you know, give yourself permission to find an activity for your child to entertain them for a little while you fill your own cup back up. Be honest with your family. When you're feeling tired, one of the things that we tend to do as human beings is we start to snap at people around us. When you're burnt out, when your cup is empty, it's really, really easy to say, like, oh my gosh, just leave me alone, or like, knock it off, like, I'm sick of that. Like, it's really easy. And I'll be honest, I'm guilty of feeling irritable with my family as well when I'm feeling burnt out. And so I think one of the things that I've started to try to tell my family, hey guys, I'm feeling really tired. Like, I'm gonna go, you know, go for a run really quick, or I'm gonna do these things that I want to do for me really quick, and then I'm gonna come back and, you know, really be able to invest in you better. So I try to preface that by letting them know what I need. It's important to take care of yourself first. You know, go for runs, eat healthy, get enough rest yourself. And if there's something you love to do, like read a book, or, you know, run around or go shopping, make sure that you're doing things that you love to do. And I put shut off the TV, and I don't mean that as like a shut off the TV. I mean, as a family, watch movies together, take time to watch your favorite shows, but don't let it take over your life. Remember to shut it off and really find times to look in your child's eyes and connect one-on-one with them, or your partners or your friends, and just build that into your life. I think I noticed even in my own life, it's been on a lot more just because we've been home a lot more. And so I just something to pay attention to. If it starts to feel like you've gone through, you know, too many series of Netflix. It's time maybe to just pay attention and set that boundary a little bit in your life. I think as a parent, it's hard to put yourself first. As a caregiver, I know how hard it is. You tend to be the last on your list. But you're the model of this. If you matter in your family structure, and if you make sure that you are as important a member of the family as anyone else, your children will see that, and it will help them to feel like an important member of the family too. If that makes sense. I think being willing to let your family, even your kids, know what you need as a person tells them it's okay for them to do the same. So if you're doing self-care, it helps them do self-care. If you're taking good care of yourself and telling them what you need, it's probably a lot easier for them to tell you what they need. And so be the model of this. Don't see it as selfish. Don't see it as taking away from your family when you take care of yourself. Remember that you're teaching your child how to take care of themselves as well. Remember, our kids' cups can be empty too. Our kids' cups empty from all sorts of different areas. They're stressed and strained just like adults. They feel rejection by peers, they feel loneliness, they feel isolation, they respond to yelling or punishment or failing. And as the caregivers, it's our job to fill our kids' cup back up. We can set up times for our kids to play with our kids, make sure they have friendships, give them one-on-one time, make sure you show love and affection to your child. Again, that connection is so critical. Help them to succeed and celebrate their successes, and give them choices. Kids who feel like they have choices are more emotionally resilient and can make better choices as adults. When you feel like you're seeing signs of, your child acting out, they're having difficulty sitting still, they're more hyperactive, they seem to constantly need attention or validation or something from you that you're not able to give them, just pay attention that their cup might be empty and look for signs that they might be under stress or strain and need you to help fill their cup back up. I think it's important to not look into these really big, like, I have to develop this super over-planned structure around connection and make sure we're doing 12-mile hikes every day. Remember that it's really the small stuff. Kids of all ages need very similar things. When we talk about attachment, I think it's really related to infants and birth to 5 attachment. We talk about that in my world a little bit. And it's that eye contact, that that playing with your child, like face-to-face time, things like that. We learn that in the hospital when we bring our baby home. But children of all ages really need a minimum of 8 touches during a day to feel connected to a parent. So when you think, okay, my child needs to be touched 8 times, and let's just say if your child is having a really tough time, or maybe they haven't felt connected to you for a while, they need up to 12. So if you break it down for yourself, I'm going to make sure that I touch my child between 8 and 12 times a day. Whether that's a quick hug, a pat on the head, sitting next to them on the couch and like having shoulder to shoulder while we do something together, even like a quick countdown in your head to make sure that your child is just getting physically touched every single day. And that can be split up. That doesn't just need to be one parent. It can just be, split up between parents and just making sure that kid is getting that physical contact. And then it's like studies show each day children need one meaningful eye-to-eye contact or conversation with a parent. When you think about kids need one conversation that's eye-to-eye with a parent or caregiver, that doesn't seem like a lot, but it means a lot to a child. When you think about looking into their eyes, responding to them, hearing what they have to say, I think that's that connectedness part that we really need to see between parents and children. And then there are 9 minutes every day that have the greatest impact on a child. The first 3 minutes after they wake up, the 3 minutes after they come home from school, and the last 3 minutes of the day before they go to bed. And so if you think of these 3 times as the critical mass parenting, you don't have to spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with your child to make a great impact and help your child feel loved and safe and secure in your home. It's about like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're awake. How did you sleep? Give that child a hug and think about that connection. It's that first interaction they have with you. They wake up and you're excited that they're there. And And I think every parent does this differently. Do it your way. The 3 minutes after they come home from school, how was your day? I missed you. I love you. It doesn't have to be a party. You don't have to have fresh baked cookies. You can just be you, and they're just excited to see you. And if they feel like you're excited to see them, that means the world to your child. And then the last 3 minutes of the day before they go to bed. This is a really great opportunity to check in. How did they feel during the day? Making sure they feel safe and secure as they go to bed. And that's just, I think, that last time before they see you at the end of the day. And it increases kids' security, helps them to fall asleep faster, which is great for you. Taking that first step, I think all of us at any critical point in our lives as a parent will look back and go, oh my gosh, I missed the mark. I am not doing that. I'm failing as a parent. Or I missed the boat and I'm feeling frustrated with my child. And this is a really hard story for me to share because I'm a mom who loves my kids so much. But when my daughter was probably starting around age 6, I just found it really hard to connect with her. I found her hyper and abrasive and always in my bubble. She never left my bubble ever. And I started to find myself constantly irritated, please go do something. And I just at one point go, oh my gosh, I don't think I like my kid. And I think she must have been 9 because it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And it made me just sit up straight. And I think if you think from 6 to 9, not that there weren't good moments, but that's a long stretch of time. And it really made me think, have I been a good mom to this kid? Because she's really struggling and I'm struggling to like her. And so that's a hard thing as a mom to say. And the story does have a happy ending because now she's 15. And from that time of 9 to 15, I really poured into her. And I really just looked for things that I liked about her and started to look for strengths in her and started to acknowledge all these wonderful qualities she brought to the table. And I realized that it was a lot more about everything else that I had going on in my life at that time and less about my daughter. I had 3 toddlers in diapers and she was just one too many. And it was just a lot at the time. And so when I started to say, oh my gosh, she's so helpful with my kids and she's such a good big sister and she's actually hilarious. And those times I'm annoyed because she's bubbling next to me, I started to see as funny and grateful that she was seeking me out. And as I started to feel less sleep deprived, it got easier and easier to connect with her. And there was a day that I remember telling her, sweetheart, I'm sorry that I haven't been a very good connected mom with you. And a few years ago, she came to me and she said, Mom, I still remember that day that you apologized to me for not being a great mom all the time. She's like, I never thought that you weren't a great mom or anything, but it meant a lot that you apologized. And it started a pattern in our family where, as a parent, if I crossed a line or if I yelled, I always say I'm sorry. And I also notice in my kids that they say they're sorry. And I think it just started this pattern of like I did something wrong and I'm going to fix it as a parent. And when I say something, I mean it. And so when my kids heard that, I think initially it did really mean a lot to them. And so I think it's something I share a lot with parents is be willing to say that you're sorry. Kids need to know that parents make mistakes and that it's about what we do after a mistake that really matters. And I think kids feel really connected to parents who can do that. So it's okay to start now. The first step can be now, and we can connect better from here on out. And it's okay to go back to your kid and say, I'm going to work on these things without feeling guilty, with just taking a step forward in that direction. So I think finally, here's just some really fun ideas to connect with your kids, with your family as a whole. Here's a family fun challenge, and I actually did one of these once, and we didn't get all the way through it, but it was fun because my family and I sat down and we created this idea of what would be this prize when we got through all of these different bonding things. And so there's a few on there that we did right away. We played a game, we had a picnic, we built an obstacle course in our yard, we had a dance party. So there's all these different fun little activities. And at the end, we had a family celebration because we'd done all these cool things. And it was way more fun even for me than I thought, because initially I was like, okay, I'll do this, but it sounded like a lot of work. But it turned out to be one of my favorite things I've ever done with my family. One thing that I always tell parents, take your kids outside, because kids are like more free. You don't have to worry about them spilling something. So go for a hike, go for a walk, go to the park. Just going outside can help everyone's mood, yours included, and you don't have to then worry about, like, at a restaurant you're worried about them spilling or being loud. It's just a time where you can run around and have more freedom. Regularly have meals together. Cook your meal together, have kids help set the table, involve them in that process, because that's one way too where you can teach kids a skill while finding that really daily time to connect. Even if it's like 3-4 times a week, you don't have to eat every day. It doesn't have to be a gourmet fancy meal. Eat pizza rolls, but just have everybody be a part of that. Tucking your kid in bed every day, even if it's just that couple minutes, it doesn't have to be an hour-long thing, but having a routine every night where you do the same thing, you tuck them in, they're reassured by that. You're the person that they see last before they fall asleep. Reading stories with your kids, so multi-purpose. When you have a kid that reads or loves to read or reads with you, that's connection in so many ways. You share time, you're close, and it teaches your child to love to read as well. Game nights are really fun, and they can be inside or outside. So I think if you have a really active family, you can go play football or, run around the track, or, inside you can, just play board games. I think game nights are so great because they really cater to any one type of family, and you can have games for all ages. I know we're going to talk about snowmen because it snowed in October, and so I think it's important to like have activities that you can do in all the seasons. So whether that's, some traditions that you have in winter and some traditions you have in spring, just like kind of thinking of things your family enjoys all times of the year. And then finally, connect with your kids every day. Hear their stories, even if it's gibberish and doesn't make any sense. Listen to them, because the older they get, they won't stop talking. When you listen to them when they're small, they'll talk when they're big. Make eye contact. Enjoy your kids. Remember those things that you enjoy about them best, because when you feel connected to your child, I guarantee you they feel connected to you too. And so look for those things that you love about your child. And there's like literally no end to the things that you can enjoy about your child, because actually they're really, really funny. I started writing down funny things my kids say, because it just makes me laugh sometimes when I'm having a low day, because kids just will say so many random things if you're listening. And so it's just take time every single day to make sure that you hear them, really hear them. Thanks, you guys. I am so grateful that you joined us again. This is our second in a series. We started talking about communication. This week we touched on connection, and then our final one in the series is on hope. And I really want to talk about hope last, because I think we all get stuck in this time of like, is this ever going to end? It feels a little hopeless. And so I think I just want to close on, yes, it can. And I'm going to tell you how you can be reminded of that next week. So I hope you all be back to join me. I've left a little time to answer questions. If you guys have put them in the Q&A box, I'd be happy to answer some for all of you. It looks like we don't have any questions from anyone, so I just want to thank you all for joining us and hope you all have a wonderful week, and hope you found some ways to connect with your family.